So maybe we can do 2-3 questions together and then answer. Xavier Banda, there.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I would just like to ask a question about change, about to what extent your past research found out some hints of change, to what extent is social reproduction interrupted in some cases.
Yes.
If sometimes public policies, education policies are successful in overcoming the circumstances of seeing schools or other possible changes that may interrupt this social reproduction. Thank you.
Maybe before the questions, you could say your name and maybe your position. It would be easy also for knowing each other.
Xavier Rambla, Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. Sorry.
Another one. Yeah. Yes.
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think that on the surface and in policy terms, a lot seems to have changed. We're talking about early school leaving, but in the UK, increasing numbers of working class young people are going to university, and we have one of the highest levels of percentage of the age cohort going on to university. So we've got lots of working class young people now in our universities, but as they moved on into the university sector, so that sector's become more segregated, segmented, hierarchical, and they are still outsiders on the inside within the field of higher education. And we have a real problem with not so much graduate unemployment, but the fact that a lot of these working class young people are leaving universities and going into non-graduate jobs. So they're ending up in the same jobs they would probably have been in at, you know, if they left school at 16, 18, but with debts of over £50,000. So, I mean, it's interesting because I think, you know, that's why I love Bourdieu, because Habitus is, you know, about, we're all agentic, you know, we all have agency. And when you talk to young working class people, they've got a powerful sense of their own agency. There's not very much fatalism, except at the very bottom sets, where they've had extremely negative experiences. On the whole, they've got a very strong sense of what is possible and what they can do. But the social exclusions are still there, they're just at a higher level of the educational system.
More questions? You were talking about the common organizational features of some of the segregated schools in where you have been working. But I would like to ask you if you identified some tensions and contradictions in the case of teachers, as if you do in the case of students. I mean, not all teachers assume or react to the same organizational structures. So you can.
I think it's very, very hard for teachers in English education at the moment. I mean, which is I'm quite emotional about it. I did some interviewing with teachers last year, and quite a number of them cried. You know, 15 years ago, you would interview teachers, they didn't cry. And I think that we have a forced programme of making all our schools into academies. A lot of teachers are very committed to being in state-run schools. And what comes with this forced policy of making schools academies is they get rebranded. So there's often a big focus on uniform, promoting a particular sort of educational image brand, and lots of regulations and rules. And also what happens is, so they've got a very, very identifiable institutional habitus, these schools. But what's also come with academies is that no longer national conditions of work apply. So teachers can be casualised. They've no longer got secure employment, their contracts can be changed, they're employed by a sort of semi-private organisation that runs, there's lots of academy chains, and some of them are run by businessmen, entrepreneurs, as well as charities. And so there's a very strong sense, I think, in schools that there's this neoliberal tide, that they're very powerless to be able to change. I mean, that's not all teachers. Some teachers are welcoming the changes, but on the whole, they and their unions are not. And when I started teaching at the beginning of the 1970s in a London primary school. You know, teachers became teachers for life. You know, I still have a whole group of friends who are still in those schools in London. Now the average length of time teachers stay in teaching is less than 5 years. We have no continuity. And of course that has a big impact on the institutional habitus too. So teachers are feeling very much that their professional identities are under threat in the UK.
Very important. In fact, here in the room there are teachers, supervisors, etc. I will give you the word now, but I would like to ask you, if you like to, the people who is here working in the schools, how they feel this situation that Diane was explaining us, these contradictions of teaching students from different social origins, and also the tensions of maybe not being able to achieve what is expected because of the organizational features, the budget constraints, etc.
Yes.
So, just putting the floor. There's a question?
Yeah, thank you. Marcelo Padilla Camarado. I'm from the University of Münster in Germany. Let me start by thanking you for including institutional, structural, individual perspectives into your presentation today. There is one dimension I wanted to point out, at least that I sense in the presentation, is that the
that's a really interesting point to make. I mean, I think that the UK and England in particular is a particularly sort of interesting case study. I mean, I think unlike other European countries, we've had a real excess of policy. And a real excess of policy that even the policymakers see as not working. And the response to the policies not working is to come up with even more policies that still don't work. And I think the other very specific issue in relation to the UK is that we've just let the gap between the poor and the rich grow and grow and grow. And in fact, that's having a really negative impact on our educational system, because as the poor become poorer and more different from the reasonably well-off and the affluent, those latter groups are even less likely to want their children to go to school with groups that they see as, you know, very likely to pull their own children's learning back. And yet we still have a very strong focus on choice and a valorising of choice in the UK, when it's quite obvious that we've now got to a situation where the, you know, our poorer, more disadvantaged students just have the choices that the more affluent and privileged families don't want. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I spent a lot of time in Nordic countries, in Finland, and I think there that the sort of they find it quite difficult to comprehend how, you know, our policy responses to the situations in our school. I mean, I don't know if people realise as well that we've stopped a major building programme. So a lot of our schools are particularly in poor areas, are in serious disrepair and under-resourced. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to emphasise how specific a case English education is, and I hope it stays a specific case. Please don't copy any of our policies.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really fascinating. My question is related to issues about how to transfer this type of research to actors and policymakers.
Yeah.
So I think this type of research is not just important for, as I said in my introduction, for policymakers, but also essentially important for teachers.
Yeah.
Because my impression is that we teachers don't manage this type of sociological type of approach. I think it's one of the main shortcomings of teachers, at least in our education system. So, what is your experience in trying to transfer this type of, for instance, the Sean's story, I find it fascinating from the point of view of the tensions between social class and gender. His masculinity also is involved in that, and how teachers can recognize this type of categories in their reading of the students.
Yeah, I do go to schools and talk quite a lot, but I'm starting to work with, there's only 2 academics, and there's about 15 people in this group, mainly teachers, head teachers, activists, and we're called Turning the Tide, although we haven't managed to turn in time yet. But so I've written a letter to English school children, trying to make it very clear and concise what I see as the problems. And that also includes what's going on with teachers, because I think, you know, English teachers they're worried, they're weary, they're worn out. And I think that often the young people don't realise how difficult the policies are for their teachers. They know that they're being tested all the time, but they don't realise the repercussions for teachers too. So we've just started doing that, and we've done it in some London schools, and the kids have been really great, very receptive. You know, we've looked at privileged kids and kids from very poor disadvantaged backgrounds. The difference is that the kids from poor disadvantaged backgrounds are very angry about what's going on, and when you get them to respond and have a discussion with them, a lot of anger comes out, quite rightly, I think. But I mean, the interesting thing is that the policies are making all our children unhappy. So the well-being levels in English schools are very, very low. Probably most recent survey, we were below Ethiopia, Poland, Latvia, in terms of our children's sense of well-being in school, and particularly low in terms of their relationship with teachers. I think because teachers don't have time to spend with students in the way they do. So we've done that, and next week I'm going to go to Norfolk and work with some schools in poor rural areas, with some of these people on this group, mostly retired, we're all mostly retired head teachers, activists, but then, you know, teachers who are working full time haven't got time to do this sort of work. So that's one thing we're trying to do, not just engage teachers, but engage students as well. But the problem is then when you produce some sort of document that you want to give to the policymakers, they're very unlikely to take any notice. I mean, our problem is, and I think I said that in the talk, that they're ideologically committed to restructuring the educational system and re-traditionalising the curriculum. And of course, they haven't sent their own children to the state sector. Their children have mostly been educated, and they themselves have been educated in the private system. So it's very difficult to get them to engage in any sort of passionate, authentic way with what's going on with poor children in schools in the UK.
If someone would like to ask a question in Spanish, it's possible.
Yo mismo. Me llamo Andrés Iglesias y soy técnico de educación del Ayuntamiento de Sevilla. Agradecer la invitación de que hayamos podido venir a este seminario internacional, porque nosotros desde Ciudades Educadoras estamos trabajando también en el tema de la prevención del absentismo, abandono escolar y también sobre el tema del éxito escolar. Me acompaña también aquí Rafael del Ayuntamiento de Málaga y somos 19 ciudades que estamos trabajando en ese ámbito a nivel estatal. Y me ha parecido muy interesante su intervención, porque normalmente cuando acudimos a intervenciones de temas de investigación nos hablan de los grandes consensos, pero su intervención ha bajado al terreno. Y en ese sentido yo me he quedado con cosas muy interesantes, como que se intenta en los colegios, desde el punto de vista de los colegios, se intenta ver el problema más desde el punto de vista del fracaso que del éxito, de buscar el acompañamiento de lo que nosotros llamamos la comunidad educativa, el problema de esos alumnos inaudibles, es decir, qué papel cumple el profesorado, porque el profesorado últimamente también en nuestro país, pues sobre todo el profesorado de secundaria, pues tiene la consecuencia sería la pregunta, ¿qué papel juega el profesorado o el movimiento de los profesores y profesoras en el Reino Unido? ¿Y qué papel juegan las instituciones locales, los ayuntamientos, dentro del Reino Unido? Porque igual que se ha puesto ejemplos, yo le puedo poner también un ejemplo de nosotros a través de un ámbito de participación, pues dentro de nuestras ciudades, dentro de nuestra comunidad autónoma, hay una política definida sobre zonas que nosotros llamamos de necesidades de transformación social. Y dentro de estas zonas, en mi ciudad, se llevó un programa durante 9 años de refuerzo escolar que se daba por las tardes y partía de la voluntad de los propios profesores de los centros en zonas que tienen unos altísimos índices de asentismo y como consecuencia pues después de abandono escolar. Y por la confluencia de esa voluntad del profesorado, durante esos 9 años que estuvo implementado ese programa en 8 centros de la ciudad de Sevilla, pues se vio que incluso alumnos que por la mañana, en las clases normales, eran inaudibles y no acudían por la tarde, e incluso alumnos asentistas que no acudían por la mañana, acudían por la tarde porque trabajaban en equipo, se sentían personas, se sentían parte de algo que ellos consideraban también, porque la escuela en definitiva debe ser un ámbito donde el alumno y el alumno sientan que la escuela es suya. En ese sentido me gustaría preguntarle qué influencia dentro del Reino Unido tienen también las instituciones locales. Gracias.
Thank you, that's a really important question because we have a real problem in the UK at the moment with our local authorities ran our schools and for the most part ran them really well. When I started teaching, I was a member of what was called the Inner London Education Authority. And we were starting to do some brilliant work in relation to race, gender, class. And there was a real value in it being geographically located, but large enough and well funded enough to do some important innovative work. And then the Tory, our Conservative government, decided they didn't want it anymore. We actually had a democratic vote. 98% of people in London voted to keep it, and they abolished it anyway. And now our local authorities are really under threat. And that's the government policy is to encourage all schools to become autonomous, to either be governed by these academy chains, which are semi-private. And so those very progressive organisations, which is what the local authorities were, are being eroded and their powers really cut back. And other people are coming in and governing our school system from the private sector. A recent policy change was that parents can no longer be governors on school governing bodies. You need to have entrepreneurial skills. So parent governors, who were a really progressive force on the whole, are going to be replaced by people with skills from the private sector. So it's all part of this privatisation of schools. And the teacher unions have started to take a voice in relation to that. But our trade union legislation in England has been so damaging and has so eroded the power of unions like the teaching union that it's very difficult for teachers to have a collective voice. So yeah, it's difficult, and I think that it's very clear that the educational system in England has been set up for privatisation. And at the moment schools can't be run for a profit. But I would be worried that before long that's what will happen. And so those really progressive institutions that did have a voice, and they made mistakes, they weren't brilliant, but they were democratic. And what we've lost with those institutions is, both on the union side and the local authority side, is really any strong democracy within our educational system. But maybe our government will change and we might get some more progressive policies.
Thank you. I have a question about what you said about students from lower social class background, that they're really angry sometimes, and I think they're also often separated across schools, so they're really highly segregated. But what I see in Belgium is that many students from middle class background, they're really not aware of those students that are angry, as they're not really aware of their own position, and how I often read many scholars from UK, they're often more critical against those social backgrounds of the students, but how do the students themselves reflect upon, the middle class students reflect upon their own social background? Do they really think of it? Do they reflect upon it or not? Because even the students from a lower social background in Belgium, they're angry, but they cannot really express themselves, I think, because it's so neglected that there is actually no debate between them. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's difficult in the UK too, because we don't really have a strong class discourse. There's a denial of class. And so we get someone like our Prime Minister, who's a multi-millionaire, went to Eton and Oxford, talking about just being an ordinary middle-class guy. And he's not. But I teach at Cambridge, and I think it's really interesting there because there's a denial of privilege. I mean, why wouldn't you deny it? Actually, if you own your privilege, and the fact that you are so much better off than other people, and you are monopolising all the resources that really should be shared more equally in society. I can see that strategically that the thing is to deny privilege, just to say you're some ordinary guy like everybody else. But we are doing that in the UK still against the backdrop where, as I say, the rich are getting even richer and the poor are getting even poorer. And that denial is going to cause more and more anger, I think, from people at the bottom who are seeing that, that it's not just in education, there is no more social housing for them. We are having a crisis in terms of our housing. The rental market in London the rents are astronomical. And when I moved I live in quite a poor area of London, and when I moved there in the 1970s, there was incredible overcrowding. 5, 7, 8 families living in a small closed house. And then all that changed, but now we have that again. Except that this time they're paying very high rents just to be in this really overcrowded housing. So it's not just the educational system, the inequalities are across all social fields. So I think this denial of privilege is a moral lack, actually, I think. It's a moral lack. I think that, and it's very, very, very pervasive in Cambridge. The students do not think. It's because of neoliberal individualisation and the dominant neoliberal discourses. Give them a letter. They're there because they're